G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of Either Side of Nil. I'm Ben, one half of this dynamic duo. I'm here in sunny Adelaide, which is on the lands of the Kaurna Nation, and I want to say thank you to the Kaurna people for looking after this beautiful place for a good 70,000 years and continue to do so. I'm joined by my fabulous cousin Kristy, who's in a pretty special place for today's episode. G'day Kristy, how you going? And where are you today?
Well, hello there, my lovely cousin Ben. I'm really well, thanks. And as always, it's so good to see you. And you'll never guess where I am, Falls Creek, here in the Bogon High Plains. And I'd like to say thank you to the First Peoples and traditional custodians of the Alpine Shire. Pay my respect to their elders, past, present and emerging. It is beautiful country up here. They call it the High Country. It's the Labor Day long weekend in Victoria, and we are at the ski village of Falls Creek for the Peaks Challenge. And for those who don't know what the Peaks Challenge is, it's an annual cycling event run by Bicycle Network. It's a loop ride that starts and ends at Falls Creek, but it consists of 230 k's of cycling, 4,000 metres of vertical climbing, which includes Tawonga Gap, Mount Hotham, and round the back of Omeo, and then up the back of Falls Creek.
Wow. And are you doing that as we record the podcast now? It don't look like you're riding, but...
Yeah. I'm on Howie's backpack, pack rag, whatever those. No, I'm not doing it, Ben. It's a one-day event and it's tough. It's comparable to a mountain stage of Tour de France.
Yeah,
and it's not for the faint-hearted, I tell you. It's you have about a total of 13 hours to complete it, and it's fair to say I love my cycling, but not that much. But I'm here as the official cheer squad and support crew. Howie left off this morning at 7 a.m. and I'll probably see him around about 7 p.m.
So what's it like there today? Was it a nice sunny start, or was the sun up yet? Or
well, his wave started at 7 a.m. and dawn was breaking. So I got some beautiful photos which I'll share on Instagram, and it wasn't that cold actually. It just wasn't too bad. So it's going to be a really nice day here, and the sun is shining as I look out over the beautiful high country here.
Oh, wow.
And this accommodation that we're at Falls Creek is perfect to record in, and you know what? It's a bit like a bunker.
That's good. You want a bunker.
Yeah.
You want some denseness to your
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm surrounded by denseness, and I've got a great view, and yeah, it's super stunning.
Right. So are you underground? No. Not quite.
Kind of. I feel like I'm tucked into the mountain.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm probably not. This feels like... But no, it's absolutely beautiful. So really loving it up here. It's a good weekend away.
That's excellent. And that's great that you could make it to either side of Nil today, because it's kind of not the same without you. It's just sort of one side of Nil. So It's fortunate that you could make it.
I'm still the other side of Nil.
You are, yeah, that's right. Imagine the ride was this side, then we'd have to record on another day.
Oh my God, we'd have to have a total rebrand.
Yeah, one side of Nil, this side of Nil.
Yeah.
So we should have a quick recap on our last on where we're at with either side of Nil, because we're a fledgling podcast, but it's going so well. We reached our first goal of 100 followers on Instagram, which you put the call out last.
I did,
and it worked. Well done.
It did. I know. We got another 9 people following us, so super pumped about that. And I reckon, why don't we double it by next episode?
Yes, 200. Come on, we can do it. We know there's at least 200 people out there that like us, surely. So we did our Women in Sport episode, which was a great story about our Auntie Betty, and we interviewed Kat Colbert, and we talked to your friend Casey Simons, who's now my friend as well. So that was a really good episode. We've had lots of good feedback about that episode.
I know. And we absolutely loved it. It was such a good one. Sorry, I cut you off there, Ben. I'm good at that. But Kat Colbert, shout out to you. You are an absolute legend.
Fantastic.
And thank you so much for being a part of it. And you know what? We had a massive spike in our listeners, and we reckon it's due to Kat. She's probably starting her own podcast now.
Yeah, we've got some celebrity pull now. That's absolutely right. So we have to say thank you to Netball Victoria, right?
Yes.
And that's for letting us use some photos.
That's right. So they had some really old photos in their collection, and Auntie Betty was in one of those. And so we were speaking to the marketing and comms director of Netball Victoria, and they were so cool. They were so helpful, and they were basically like, "Yep, get it out there. We're going to listen to your pod, and we'll share your pod." And they did all that.
Wow.
So we were just absolutely wrapped.
Yeah.
So, and they couldn't have been more supportive, Ben.
That's so good. We're getting so much support. It's everyone we're reaching out to, depending
Mm.
on, and we're doing planning for future episodes as well. We're getting lots of support. People are really happy to talk to us, which, that's great. I've got to
Why
say,
not?
that's absolutely, of
Yeah, I'm
course.
happy to talk to us.
We're nice people.
Yeah. And also, we put the call out to Lucy Steffen, who is also a fan, and we hope to include her in an upcoming future episode as she prepares for the Commonwealth Games in the middle of the year, and she'll be heading over to Edinburgh. But we do
Wow.
have another VIP lined up for that episode, which is already locked and loaded, baby.
So, Kristy, today's episode is all about street art, public art. Why don't you get
Sure is,
into it?
Ben. You know how much I love street art, and I'm always so surprised and delighted by like the small or the large pieces that you see in and around on your travels. So let me tell you about a couple of the things that I've seen just recently. Recently, I spied a range of really interesting street art in a skinny little laneway in Brighton, Victoria.
Ah,
But all the art is of women. Um, there's no particular style, and I'll post some to Insta, but
yeah.
it's just like down this tiny little skinny laneway between a theatre, and it's not even like the artist is promoting anything or prompting people to go down this laneway. I don't know why I was going down there. I don't know, just try my luck, but don't know what I was doing there in the laneway. But it's like this great big blank canvas that this artist has taken to drawing women on bikes or uh, just women with shopping bags, just really random stuff. Someone drinking a cup of coffee,
It's
some are
just one artist, is
incompleted.
it? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
it's really
okay,
cool.
okay. Yeah, right.
I have to go back down there and see if it's still there or if there's been any progression. So I really love that. It's just tucked away, sort of, not in your face. But on my way to work, been catching the train in, I've been also really happy to see new artwork appearing along the train ride into Richmond Station. So,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there's some really interesting pieces. But I want to tell you, Ben, about this massive piece, and it's not a new piece. It's been there for ages, but it's of Taylor Swift, Kanye West, and Kim Kardashian all in
Really?
bed together. Yeah, get this.
Really?
Kanye's got a bra on and the others are just sort of asleep. It's a picture of them three in a bed asleep, and it's massive on a big wall.
What?
Um, and this was done a couple of years back when do you remember when Taylor Swift came to accept one of her awards at the Grammys or on
Yeah,
whatever music award, it might have been MTV Music Awards, and Kanye just started dissing her.
and crashed it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
So it was basically off the back of that. So it's like I said, it's a couple of years old, but it's really, really cool. And no one, because it's so big and it's up towards the top of the building, people don't actually they've tagged along the bottom of it and ruined the bottom half, but it's still there. So I've got
Oh,
a
right.
copy of it that I'll share on the Insta. It's really, really cool.
What is that in the city, did you say?
Richmond Station.
Oh, Richmond Station. Wow. So
Mm.
lots of people would see it. Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's pretty famous. But then there's been this other really interesting thing that's happened during lockdown, and it's street art and community art, which
Okay.
surfaced, in the area that I used to live in the
Mm,
community laneways, and they're called. Oh, I don't even know what they're called. They're just like laneway art.
right.
So there could be framed and unframed pictures on the walls, or little gardens, or interesting mosaics, community libraries, and excess fruit, like lemons and stuff like that. There's this one
Okay.
in Carnegie where I used to live called Reader's Way, and through some of the older suburbs, there's heaps of laneways, through around the back of, houses and stuff like that. So they've been converted into these art galleries, community art galleries,
Right.
and they're really, really cool.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's all sort of happy and positive, or stuff that was going on in lockdown, and there might be one artist that's sort of taken over one section of the walk, and it might be just all their stuff that they've painted on the fence or painted on, you know, tiles or whatever, or framed pictures. It's really, really cool, interesting. It's
Wow.
called Reader's Way. That's the one that I
Okay.
know.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
and of course, Melbourne City is famous for its laneway art. Like you've done with your street art, you can download maps and take self guided tours around Melbourne laneways. See some of the brilliant art in like Hosier Lane, for example, ACDC laneway, which is a bit more rock and roll theme. That
ACDC Laneway.
Yeah, there's an
Wow.
actual there's an actual laneway that got created a couple of years back, and it's a homage to them.
Ah,
So yeah, there's just a few to name a few, but the beauty of it is, Ben, a lot of the laneway art is always changing.
yeah.
You
It
know,
doesn't just stay static. It
yeah.
does change, which I think that's really good.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, there's a big laneway art scene in Melbourne. If you're ever in Melbourne, you can also do the same thing.
Mm.
Take the old guided tour. Might do it myself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, there is it's kind of it's really has exploded, I think, to say the least. Street art, public art in Adelaide as well has just gone crazy.
I love it. And it's like funking up all these dowdy old buildings or sides
Yeah.
of buildings that make it so interesting. And do you know when you see a brand new piece of laneway art or street art, it's just like, oh my God, that's new. How
Yeah.
cool is that?
Yeah.
How do they
Yeah.
do that? Yeah.
It blows me away how big they are and how quickly they get done as well,
Yeah.
which is unbelievable. We've got, and I think because a lot of apartment buildings are going up now, not just in the city, there's a lot of apartment buildings in a lot of the suburbs now in Adelaide, because Adelaide, it's smaller than Melbourne, as we know, and
Mhm.
that's why we love it so much.
Yeah.
But a lot of the suburbs that are sort of just out of the city now, which people want to live close to the city, but they don't necessarily want to live in the CBD itself. So a lot of these suburbs are building these huge apartment blocks, and some of them are really nice. Some of them are just horrid and ugly and revolting. But what they're doing is putting these huge artworks on the sides of them, and it just makes it really interesting. So you're not focusing so much on the building itself, but you're
Couldn't
looking at
agree
the
more. And I love that have that artwork on the side of a building. It just makes it so much more interesting, doesn't it?
mm, it does, but it's not just the big stuff either. There's some small stuff that's really, really cool that's around Adelaide as well. So, do you want to know a little bit about public art in Adelaide?
Go for it. Yeah, I
Should we?
do.
Should we do it? Should we
Let's
do it?
do
Let's
it.
see if
Yeah.
we.
Tell me about the art scene in Adelaide generally.
Well, I got to start.
I got you there, Ben.
Thank you. I will. Uh, I need to talk to you first about the art scene within my own house, because we have,
Oh,
and I'm so annoyed. Before we started filming this, our listeners won't actually see the video, but you and I can see each other while we're talking. I can see you in Bunker HQ, and I have art behind me, but it's really sort of impressionist, famous, European artists. So I wanted to put a couple of our works that we've got inside our house behind me, but I completely forgot. Darn it. Anyway, we have a lot of artist friends,
and
and they're not,
family too. Don't
and
forget
family.
Angus.
Exactly. So we have Angus Martin, who is our cousin's son, who is a really well known artist in Australia, and he does really beautiful stuff. In fact, behind me I have a collage from Henri Matisse, and that's the kind of style that Angus really
Mm,
likes.
mm.
We have our friend Denise Hodgsick, who does really um, really simple, abstract paintings at the moment. She's also done a lot of prints, and we have one of her original paintings in our house now. I'm very proud to say,
Wow,
which is
Ben.
what I wanted to have up here. And we've got a couple of Denise's prints. Another friend of ours, Martin Dwardedge, we've got a really nice etching of his. Paula Zetlin, who's a friend of ours, she lives in Bendigo. She's actually from Bendigo, but she met one of our friends here in Adelaide, and they now live back in Bendigo. She does real life drawing of plants and flowers, like really native
Oh, wow.
waratahs, gum nuts,
Oh,
gum leaves,
really?
and flowers and banksias and all this stuff. But she's branching out into other subjects. But her drawings are incredible. I mean, they are absolutely so detailed. So we've got a lot of friends who are professional artists, but then a lot of my
Mm.
friends also do are very good artists. My friend Amy Tedge, who I know listens to this podcast, so hi Amy if you're listening. She does some really nice paintings as well and is very creative and arty. So we're surrounded by lots of creative people, and we love having art on our walls in the house.
Mm.
So. And hopefully we can do some more. But
You've got
like I
a
said,
beautiful piece of art on your wall in your hallway, the Corny Point one.
yeah, that was my sister-in-law. Ellie painted that.
I
God,
love
maybe
that.
nearly 20 years ago. Do you know that's in our son's bedroom now because he loved it so much. He wanted it in his room. So it's now
Ah,
in his room. But yeah, we've had that on the wall for forever. And that's a view of the beach from how we see it from the shack. That's right. Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you again.
No, it's okay. I
That's
need to be
twice now.
interrupted occasionally or else I'll just keep going. So it allows me to take a breath. Yeah, so like we said, making blank spaces look good and alleyways, ugly
Mm.
buildings, all of that stuff. Even when they do, we went on a bit of a drive the other night to do some hunting down of some public art close by because it's not
Hmm.
just in the city, and we came across a couple of really huge works by Elizabeth Close, who we interviewed for this episode, and you'll get to hear that interview later on in the episode, which we're so excited about. The Lights Recreation Centre, she's done a really big collaboration there. And then there's some more art on both sides of this big rec centre. So, there's pools and there's tennis courts. It's a community centre run by the local council.
Mm.
And Elizabeth has done a really big work there, and that's beautiful. And I've got all these photos which I can share with everyone, and give you the names and who she collaborated with. But like I said, get the Fringe street art map if you're here in Adelaide. You can get that even after Fringe. It doesn't really matter. Elizabeth Close did another really big, her first artwork here at Tea Tree Plaza, and I'll leave that because we talk about that in the
Mm.
interview. But some of the prominent artists in Adelaide, of course, there's Elizabeth Close. Peter Drew and Findak do some really amazing stuff. There's some screen printing and some old posters that get put up. I think that's by Peter Drew of some really old vintage photos and paintings. I think the theme of painting women is actually a thing, like you talked about it yourself. Lisa King, who's an artist, she's painted a lot of women in public art and Findak as well. So women seem to be a theme, which is so good. I mean, I think that's a great theme. So look, public art in Adelaide is big. It's as in it's a big scene, but it
Mm.
doesn't always have to be big. Sometimes it's the small things in a laneway or just a little
Mm.
surprise around the corner that will grab your attention, don't you reckon?
Yeah.
It's not always like the huge big wow factor. Sometimes it's those little surprises that you come across like you did.
Yeah. Like I did with the tennis wall with Pank, the artist Pank. Remember him? He did Ash Barty,
Yeah.
Dylan Alcott, and he did all the street art for Australian Open. And his most recent piece, I'm going to tag him in, but it's in Moonee Ponds in Victoria, and it's of like the Joker,
Ah,
and he's eating a donut, a pink donut. Oh, hang on, what's
okay.
it called? A Berliner?
A Berliner. Yeah.
Nah, he's just done this colourful, bright Gotham kind of artwork, comic artwork.
Wow.
It's bloody unreal. So clever. It's so clever. That's what just gets me. It's like I can't believe, you can do like imagine artists, doing their little tiny paintbrushes and it's so fine and intricate, but they're doing these great big sides of buildings and
Mm,
walls and they're just so amazing. I just love
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unreal.
It's very cool. It's such a nice thing to have around in society. I think it's good. You just get out and have a look at any old time. It's free. It's always there. It's so good. So
Absolutely. Love it.
yeah, and we love it. So speaking of love, we made a new friend because we interview Elizabeth Close, and you're gonna get to listen to that interview in just a moment.
Mm.
But neither of us had ever met or spoken to Elizabeth before. I had had some contact with her in the lead up to the interview, and Even in the emails, you could tell she was lots of fun. But we became instant fans, didn't we,
Oh,
Kristy?
clicked straight away. I had only seen her work online, of course, and had did a little bit of research on Elizabeth. And but then when she got online, oh my God, she was awesome. There was so much energy and
Yeah,
fun, and we absolutely loved chatting with Elizabeth.
we
And
did.
yeah, just she's got such an amazing story to tell.
Yeah.
But bloody hell, so talented.
And then once we finished the interview, we just kept chatting, didn't we?
We
Just
did,
kept going
yeah.
on and on. So afterwards, I kept thinking, what was in the interview and what wasn't? Because we we sort of trailed off on all these other
We
discussions.
did,
So
but I think you stopped recording at that stage.
I had,
Yeah, yeah. But oh God, I could have just kept chatting to her for ages because she was
yeah.
so engaging, and like we'd both never met her before, but instantly we absolutely connected and just adore her work.
Yeah, it's really incredible actually. So let me tell you a little bit about Elizabeth before you get to listen to this great interview. Elizabeth Close is a prolific artist here in SA, as we've just said, and as you would know if you live here in SA, she has a lot of well-known and very large public works, including some really interesting collaborations. She's an Anangu woman from the Pitjantjatjara and Yankunytjatjara language groups, whose family links are in the APY lands. She actually started out her career in nursing, which you'll hear a little bit more about, and began to paint professionally in 2007 and exhibiting her works publicly around then. By 2014, she'd built up a full time arts practice, which is the dream of every artist, right? And she moved her family to the APY lands so she could
Mm.
learn more about her grandmother's family, and so that her and her husband could immerse their children in the culture and the language. And that reconnection for her and learning a lot about her family history made a huge impact on her life and also her art. So it's no doubt her artwork is striking. I think it's clear she's definitely one of my favourite artists, and my
Mm.
dream is to have one of her pieces hanging up in my house one day. We did catch up with Elizabeth a couple of weeks ago over Zoom. As we said, she was so much fun to talk to. So let's take a listen. G'day, Elizabeth. Thanks so much for joining us on Either Side of Neil. Can we start by talking about how you became a professional artist? Because it's a fairly unconventional route that you took. You were actually a nurse for 10 years before becoming a professional artist. Is that right?
Yeah, that is. And I'm technically still registered, although I don't know how much longer the board will let me stay on. So yeah, you're right. I actually failed art at school. I failed year 8 art because I couldn't or didn't engage with structured art activities. And oh my God, I can still remember that. Oh, I can still see her face. She was awful. And so I didn't do art again. I kind of left it and actually wanted to go into health. And so when I finished school, I did a Bachelor of Nursing, and then worked for 10 years as a registered nurse in the emergency department at one of the major metro hospitals here in Adelaide. And then when I was about 22, my grandmother passed away, and she was probably my strongest kind of link to culture. We've obviously had some, cultural disruption in our family due to forced removal policies and things like that. And so she was that kind of, I guess, that link for me. And I, after that, I kind of really went off the rails, like hard. And at some point, something in me said, I need to process this grief in a far more healthy way. And so I went back to what she and I used to do together, which was like creation. She used to, we would draw. She could sew. I can't sew. I once hemmed my pants with a staple gun, so I didn't pick up that talent. But we used to draw and paint together and things like that. And so I sort of returned to that, I guess, as a means of I guess some catharsis. And then I actually found it so incredibly therapeutic, but also it's like, this is actually a really strong way for me to express culture, because at that point, sort of going back, sort of 15 years ago, I was still kind of understanding my Aboriginality as myself. And so through art, I was sort of able to navigate that. And so, so I kept nursing. I was nursing part-time, and then we had 3 children. So I was, a bit of mat leave and, painting through that. And then we returned to country and lived in the lands for a year with 2 of our children. The third one hadn't been born. We didn't just like leave him in Adelaide. And then we came back. And I had my third baby, and I never went back. I was too, to be honest, I was too busy. I was so busy with art projects, and particularly public art and things like that, that I just genuinely didn't have time to do any nursing shifts. And so it sort of organically, this practice grew until at some point I had to say, I can't do this anymore, which is really kind of funny actually, because I emailed them my resignation and didn't get a reply. And then for like months and months and months go by, and then I get a phone call, and it's like, it's payroll, regarding your termination. And I'm like, wait, I'm being fired. And she's like, yeah, you haven't attended work in 5 years. I'm like, oh yeah, actually that's probably a bit fair. Probably fair. Having said that though, because they'd left it so long, I got all this leave paid out. So I was like, yes.
Yay.
Yeah, anyway. Very long answer to a very short question about how I'm here.
It's totally fine. Super funny. Hey, your public artworks are really big. Some of them are huge. What is it about large public works that you love, and how do you go about actually completing them? I know that there's some scaffolding involved and harnesses. Do you have a team?
Yeah.
Not afraid of heights, are you?
Funnily enough, so when I came back from the lands, a mate of a mate sort of said to me, it was putting on a street art fest, like as part of Fringe, and was like, do you want to do some street art? And I'm like, hell yeah, I want to do some street art. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to swear. I was like, yeah, I want to do some street art. And so I did it, and I got bitten by the bug, because I was like, this is so powerful, because art should be accessible. It should be, it should be for everyone. And so I fell in love with public art as this concept of taking art off the walls of the wealthy, out of the gallery spaces, which can be, not necessarily accessible to everyone, putting it in the public space for everyone to enjoy. And then there was that sort of added benefit as well of, this is an opportunity that we have here to really increase the visibility of Aboriginal arts and culture in the public space, and really make it clear that we are still here, we are surviving, we are thriving, we are practicing our culture. And so that's, I think, what kind of, what sort of really drove me to get into it. And funnily enough, when I did do that first wall, I was using the tiniest little battery operated scissor lift that I didn't even know I needed a license for, and I was petrified. But then you fast forward kind of 6 years, and I'm doing 9-story ones in Melbourne on swing stages. And so obviously it was a fear as opposed to a phobia, because I've managed to overcome it.
I love the picture on your website is actually you putting a harness. It's like the back of you putting a harness on. I'm ready for action. Yeah.
Part of my uniform.
Yeah. Fantastic. There's a lot of your public art in Adelaide, and it is stunning. And actually one of them is close by at the Parry Hills Community Centre, the beautiful portrait of Uncle Frank Wanganeen with his grandson, which is just beautiful. A lot of your artworks are very bright and colourful, just a real feast for the senses. Others have very minimal colour. How do you go about, what's your decision-making process about when you will use lots of colour and when you'll go that more minimal style?
Yeah, I think it very much depends on the scale as well. Like a scale, I think, is important. If you're painting, a 9-story building on Flemington Road in Melbourne, you need it to be really heavily contrasting, because you want to punch people in the face as they're driving down. Whereas when you've got those smaller walls like the Parra Hills one that you mentioned, that is a real opportunity to kind of bring in elements of colour and texture. So it's sort of, I guess, a bit of a balancing act between size and scale, but also the story that you're telling, because I often use palette as a means to talk about landscape. So obviously I'm a desert woman. I come from I'm Pidgin Yankudada, so middle of Australia. So I genuinely and sort of gravitate towards warm palettes. But then it depends where I'm painting. Down here on Ghana country, where we've got the Mount Lofty Ranges, we've got, we're close to the coast. So, bringing in those tones as well sort of, speaks to the landscape. And so it's very much a bit of a balancing act, again, between the story you want to tell and the scale on which you need to tell it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
It seems that you're a really very busy artist. How do you choose which commissions you'll accept or which artist you'll collaborate with? Because that must be a big decision.
I am. I am very, very busy, but I've got a solid.
Sorry, that sounded really funny.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, so look, I've got a tight crew of artists that I collaborate with, and I really value collaboration because I think that's where we learn and we grow. And I always, when I talk about, talk to like school groups and stuff, you know how like when you're, at school or at uni and you had to do a group project and you kind of wanted to die inside because you knew that either someone would be useless, you'd have to do all the work. Yes. I don't actually like that person anyway. So collaboration is not really like a good thing. But then, when you're a grown up and you get to choose who you work with, I think we meet artists along the way, and the Adelaide art scene is very collegial. It's actually really lovely and organic. It's a wonderful community, and so you very easily work out, I reckon my style will work really well with yours. What do you think? And kind of throw it out there. And, it's through that process, that's given me, so collaborating with Georgia Hill, for example, who's Melbourne-based artist. Actually, she might even be in Sydney now. Who collaborated with me on my first sort of really big scale thing, which was the 6-story one at Tea Tree Plaza. And yes. So, it's only through working with her, because how do you go from painting a single story mural to 6 stories? Like, it's like, how do you eat an elephant? Where do you even start? So having someone to mentor you through that gives you then the drive to be like, yeah, I can do this. I can paint a 9-story wall in Melbourne by myself because now I know what I'm doing. So I think I really value collaboration. And in terms of the jobs I take on, look, it's interesting, and I have this conversation often, about you understand the organizations and the schools and the companies and stuff that are really genuine and meaningful, as opposed to kind of like, let's throw some Aboriginal art up here to tick a box. And I'm and like, no hate to private schools. Don't really like working with private schools. I value public education, and I value that. So, generally I kind of tend to stay away from those ones, but not always, not exclusively. There are some really, really good ones doing some really great, genuine stuff that is under the radar. But it's, sometimes it's that like that old boys network, and, you're just like, oh no, this is scam and I don't want to do this. I don't want to be tokenized. I don't want you to weaponize my culture for you to be able to look woke, because you're not really, it's not genuine. So yeah, so a lot of the time it's about balancing like the vibe of who you want to, does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of that, you've immersed yourself and your family in your culture and your language by moving to the APY lands where your family was from, or is from. How's that influenced the evolution of your art in the years since?
Oh, yeah, look, honestly, I can quite hand on heart say that going back to country and living on country, immersing myself and my children in language and culture and our practices, and reconnecting with my grandmother's family, it was an absolutely transformational thing for me as an Aboriginal woman, as an Anningal woman, but also as an artist. I had the opportunity to some of the women in my family are world-renowned Central Desert artists, and to be able to sit with them and watch them and learn from them, I think it's really clear, when I go through, and I look back over the past 15 years of, be it on Instagram, Facebook, and the kind of cringe, oh God, but then, you can really see, I could really see a huge evolution in my work from when we moved to the lands, and then when I brought that back and then built on that, and not in a way that copied Central Desert art, because that's, if you want deep cultural storytelling from Central Desert and, Anningal women, that's where you go.
Yeah.
But I've got my own story to tell, and that's about reconnection. And so I can speak to that. That's my lived experience. And so I can bring elements of palette and texture and technique into my work that I've learned from these women, these incredible, strong Anningal women, but very much told my story through that lens, if that makes any sense.
Well, that makes perfect sense, because the thing about your art is that you can see that you are drawing influences from what we might say is the traditional or some of the more ancient styles. I'm just noticing the tattoo on your shoulder, which I think is possibly one of your own designs, because I've seen some of your art around with that style. So, because the story continues, doesn't it? There's more stories to be told, and that's your role, I guess, in the future of all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because, we consider street art, it depends who you ask, because it's really kind of, contemporary phenomena. we've been street artists for tens of thousands of years,
Yeah.
in terms of, changing the landscape, cave painting, carvings, things like that. And so, quite often a lot of the iconography in my work, you'll see I use drips, and I use that to speak to this concept of relative recency. I could paint the oldest building in Australia and it would be a mere blip on the radar compared to the length of time that Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people have lived on this land. And so, it's like the paint's still wet on non-Aboriginal occupation of this land. So yeah, I do kind of tend to kind of bring that in.
Wow, that's a really interesting insight. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Are you working on anything exciting at the moment that you can tell us about? Or too much going on?
Yeah. Sometimes it's a bit like that, everyone's like, oh, what are you doing at the moment? And it's like, I don't even know. I don't even remember what I had for dinner last night. I do have some exciting projects coming up. I'm doing some more really large work in Melbourne. So doing some work over there. I've got some big projects coming up here in Adelaide and a few kind of in the pipeline. I'm also planning on building because I've got a studio practice as well, obviously. So, this is the thing, right? Balancing my studio practice, which is where my work came from, with this sort of large scale public art stuff. So, not having too much of both. And so, so I'd really like to kind of spend some time this year in the studio, really refining some existing work and building a body of work for exhibition, perhaps later in the year. So lots of bits and pieces kind of everywhere. I guess that's freelance artist life, right? You patchwork, quilt enough stuff together. Hopefully you can pay the bills.
That's it.
And finally, have you ever been to Nil? Are you aware of the Silo Art Trail? And also, are you aware that there's the Nil Silo, which is now a community-owned silo, but there's a big blank canvas on the Nil Silo. I'm just saying.
Just saying.
Oh, just saying. My goodness. Why did I not know that? Right. So first things first, have I been to Nil? Yes, I definitely have, because I passed through it on the way to Melbourne, as I'm sure everyone in Adelaide and Melbourne have at some point. I would really, really love to do a silo. It's on my bucket list because, I like the bigger the better, right? I'm just I love going big now, and I desperately would love to do a silo. We did put in an artist collective, and I put in for a silo in a country town that I shall not name, and it's interesting because what happens is, unfortunately, a lot of the time it's not brave, it's kelpies and combine harvesters and farmers, and do you know what I mean? I have yet to see a really strong, I think I've seen one really strong abstract silo, and I'd love to see that, and I'd love to find a community that is brave enough to really embed. And also sometimes in the country, those First Nations perspectives are just not necessarily as they're not as cognizant of them as perhaps they are in the metro. But I would desperately love to do a silo, and I really hope that one day I get the opportunity to.
Oh wow, yes.
So do we. Hit me up. You got any friends in Nil? I'm down. Give me a call.
Hey, we're making connections in Nil.
Yes, we are.
I bet.
Yeah. You never know.
So certainly we hook me up.
Yeah. Well, look, you just never know what might happen. Hey.
That's it.
It's been such a wonderful chat today, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for joining us on either side of Nil.
Thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. No, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, Ben, that was such an excellent chat with Elizabeth. I really thoroughly enjoyed that. And something she said really sticks in my mind, and I don't know if you notice that too, but she was talking about getting artwork out of the boardrooms.
Yeah, out of the houses of people. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I really love that. And it's and that's exactly what she and some of her contemporaries are doing. So excellent interview.
Thanks,
now,
Liz.
Yes.
She's Liz, we're friends.
Yeah. Good on you, Ben. As always on our amazing podcast, we always focus on Nil.
Of course.
So being the art theme, we're going to talk about the Silo Art Trail. So recently I attended the Chanel Manifesto at the NGV, which is a celebration of Gabrielle Chanel.
What's that got to
And
do with Neil? Sorry.
it's a long wind up.
It's a very long. Take a few steps back. Here she comes.
There she comes. So not only was it very super interesting exhibition, but I learnt a lot about her and her life. But the best thing I saw when I was walking down to the NGV, Ben,
Mm.
were the mini silos at Fed Square.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, so it's got a proper name, and it is the Urban Mini Silo Art Trail.
Okay.
So it's a mini exhibition of silos that have been dotted around Melbourne, promoting the Wimmera and the Mallee region. And this, which is the country's biggest outdoor gallery, the size
Yeah.
of those silos, right?
Yeah.
So it pays homage.
Hey, that's my word. You're learning
That's
French
three
from me.
times. 3 times this year. It pays homage to Victoria's iconic silo art trail. So there's one at Southern Cross Railway Station,
Okay.
and there's one at Fed Square right at the front, and there's
Mm.
also one tucked around the corner at Acme.
What's Acme?
Pardon?
What's Acme?
Australian Centre for Moving Images.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
And yes, it's just Acme is where you can go and see. They have exhibitions, and they also have movies, and Swinburne have the Swinburne Centre at Acme now. So Swinburne
Okay.
have got some skin in the game there.
Cool.
But dotted around Melbourne, they have got all these little minis, and they're so cute. And it's a perfect segue to the super interesting chat that I had with Peter Duperuzal, who is the president of the Nil Silo Project. So in a coming episode, we're going to be chatting exclusively with Peter, but he has provided us with a fantastic update on what's been happening inside the silo.
That's
I guess
so
this
cool.
is long-winded because the silo hasn't been painted on the outside, right? It's a bit of a blank
No,
canvas at the
it
moment,
is.
right?
It is a blank canvas. Yes.
Yeah, just saying.
Just saying.
Yeah.
We got contacts, Peter.
Yeah, got spray can will travel. But
Got some ropes.
for everybody that is in Nil, they're all fully aware of the Nil silo and how the community has purchased the Nil silo.
Because it's
And
like literally, it's pretty much in the centre of the town, really, isn't it?
smack bang.
Yeah.
So Pete said, Pete, let's call him Pete. We are pretty close
Already.
now.
Oops.
Yeah. But they've been working really hard fixing and cleaning the inside of the silo so that the public can actually come inside.
Yeah.
So there've been stacks of maintenance issues, such as there's a bit of water damage to the floor. The gutters have been leaking, and there's been a few holes in the roof. So it's had a bit of damage to the floor there. But last Saturday, they had an open day for members and donors. And as you know, peeps, we are members.
We are members, yep.
We've got a
paid up.
certificate to prove
Totally,
it,
yeah.
right? And so they had a bit of an open day for members and donors to come in and check it out, see how their money's being used in the repairs, and also to make some suggestions moving forward. And Pete said the common suggestion is that they focus on the milling industry and the farming community that the silo revolves around.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Did you
that's
see the
pretty
photos?
cool.
There were some photos on
Yeah.
Facebook if you want to follow on Facebook.
Did.
Yeah.
And also Wendy Verheinmarsh, she's one of our followers on Insta. She posted a ton of photos as well. So
Right.
good on you, Wendy.
Thanks, Wendy.
Wens. And so you're right, Ben. The aim was to restore and maintain the silos, but it's all done by volunteers.
Yeah.
And it is an absolute icon that stands almost right in the middle of town. It has done for over 100 years. So hats off to the Nil community that saved this
Yeah.
icon from being bulldozed.
Well, it just shows you, this is what communities have to do to keep these things preserved. You have to really fight hard to protect the history of your towns, whether it's Indigenous history, which I think is even harder to fight to protect, isn't it?
Yep.
Or more recent history, you got to fight really hard, and people just put their blood, sweat, and tears into these things. So good on you, Neil.
Yeah, and when people can, collaborate together and connect, it can be a really powerful force. So But Pete says that they've got a long way to go, but with the backing of the awesome community and Neil, he said he's pretty sure that they can achieve it, which is great
Yeah.
news. And they are working on a public open day to be in August this year. So that would be
Okay.
something really awesome to look forward to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there is so much more to chat about the Neil Silo, the Heritage Project, and we can't wait to bring you more on that. But we really thank Peter for taking the time to share with us this awesome update.
Yeah. And how good would it look? I mean, I don't want to sort of push the point, but Pete, if you are listening, we do have an artist that we know that would love to paint those silos, and you know, we'll let you know.
Yeah,
Talk
be
to us.
interesting to see how the community goes about picking an image,
Yeah.
an artist, and how that is decided.
Yeah, exactly. And because you want it to be something that really stands out, but you need to sort of push the boundaries a little bit, don't you? Because there are a lot of silos being painted, and it is a really incredible image to see because they're so vast, they're so huge, and they're enormous. But wouldn't it be great if they were a little bit daring in Neil and wanted to do something a little bit different? I think there's definitely an opportunity there, and if anyone's going to make it happen, it's either side of Neil. It's got to be us, really.
Got the can-do attitude.
We do. We are so can do. Hey, Kristy, believe it or not, that just about wraps up this
Oh, no
episode. It feels
way.
like we just started. I don't know what is going on. You're in the bunker. I'm standing up today because
How
I
do you
thought
reckon your flow went standing
I
up?
think it was better. I think I was a bit more. My shoulders were down. My diaphragm was open. It was nice actually. Yeah, I've got my hands behind my back. Very. I'm trying not to knock anything because that's what I tend to do. You hear these. I'm knocking things. I'm rattling things. So I'm trying to just stay well away from the equipment.
Don't touch anything.
But it was a jam-packed episode as always. And this edition of Street Art Public Art is.
Yeah.
It was so good, and I think it's probably we could definitely do some more
Oh,
episodes
there's
around
so
art.
much more.
Yeah,
And we'll be chucking a bunch of our images that we've been finding around the place. And wherever I've been going, Ben, and even this morning when I was walking around the village here at Falls Creek, I
yeah.
found a really awesome piece of street art.
Did you?
Yeah, I
Okay.
did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's a panda eating noodles, right? But it's still
Oh, yes. You shared that one to the family. I saw
yeah.
that.
Oh,
Yeah,
you got a sneak peek.
I did.
But yeah, I will be sharing some pretty cool street art. But also check out the amazing photography by Tinkle. I think
Mm,
that's how you pronounce it. Anyway, her name's Kristy, and she's from the local Neil area, and she does some amazing photographs. And I think she must be using some sort of drone across
wow.
the fields, sunrise, sunsets.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got in touch with Kristy yesterday, and that was weird. Hi, Kristy. Hi, Kristy. How's it going, Kristy? Yeah, good. Thanks, Kristy. Anyway,
At least you
um,
won't accidentally call her Kirsty.
oh my God, we talked about that too because
Did you?
I bloody hate being called Kirsty, so don't go there. One way to peeve me off is to call
Yeah.
me Kirsty. But
Oh,
anyway, she's going to be on one of our upcoming episodes, which is going to be on the Neil, the farming. It's going to be a farming episode, so that's
yeah.
pretty cool.
Well, that sort of art meets farming, isn't it? I know a guy here who has a farm, and he does drone photography as well, or drone videos when they're actually doing with the big combine
Oh,
harvesters, and it's
amazing.
just so cool. Drones are cool. Yeah. Do you know that there's actually a couple of galleries in Nil as well? So
Ah,
art in
yeah.
Nil is big. So there's a couple of galleries that, if you're in Nil, if you're passing through Nil, if you're going to get a sausage roll or a Berliner in Nil,
Don't take it into the gallery, whatever you bloody do.
no, don't eat a sausage roll in the gallery. It's really not good. Sausage rolls you almost need to eat with a knife and fork. It should be mandatory, because you get the pastry all happening. But anyway, look, there are a couple of galleries in Nil. Check it out. You just need to Google galleries in Nil, and you can see what's happening. There's some exhibitions sometimes, or there might be just the artworks that are permanently there. But
Okay.
check it out.
Yeah. So what's coming up next, Ben?
Well, next we're actually talking about all things Nil. Our next episode is going to be focusing purely on Nil. We have a really exciting, exclusive chat with the mayor the Hindmarsh area, which is Melanie Albrecht. I don't know. You guys say Shire, I think, don't you? We don't say Shire here, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mayor Melanie Albrecht, who's been excellent and is very keen to chat to us.
Yep.
So we really want to focus on Nil. What's been happening in Nil? What are the focuses for the councillors and for the local area around business and community
Yep.
development? All of those great things. So that's a real honour. And we're really, really looking forward to that. So we look forward to talking to Melanie, and thanks, Kristy, because you've been the you've hooked up our chat with Melanie. So you've done really, really well.
No, it's going to be excellent. Really looking forward to that. Do you know one thing I totally forgot to talk about, and it's in my notes here, Ben? Moomba.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Moomba.
yeah. Okay.
So that's a massive celebration over the long weekend. But anyway,
okay.
I did post some stuff to Insta. It's pretty cool. There's heaps happening in Melbourne. And of course Adelaide as well over this long weekend.
Yeah. So you guys have a long weekend Monday.
Yeah,
Monday.
yeah. Got tomorrow off.
Fantastic. And it's my father-in-law's birthday tomorrow, and it was my sister-in-law's birthday yesterday. So happy birthday to both of you. If I forget, no,
birthday shout outs.
Sorry, it's not. What are we? Commercial radio? Oh my goodness.
All right, guys. Well, that just about wraps it up. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye-bye.